Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm glad to present you my latest datapack called Energy Manipulation. This pack allows you to create your own spells directly in-game, making you able to design spells ranging from a simple projectile spell like this one, to other more complicated spells that will destroy all your enemies with one simple click. Well, at least if you have enough energy for them. First of all, I'm gonna show you all the items added by this pack, and they all come in 5 different variants, one for each energy type. We have Sun, Ground, Soul, Dark, and Void. The first item is Energy, and it's gonna be the fuel for our spells. Then we have the spell books that are gonna allow us to cast spells. Energy jars that are gonna make us able to bring with us more energy in a more compacted way. As you can see, they can carry up to 1000 energy. And finally, we have armors that are not actually gonna protect us, because as you can see, they have 0 armor points, but they can discount our spell massively. To obtain all the items in this pack, we have to find structures like this one, called Ruin. They come in 5 different types, one for each energy type, and they can be found in different dimensions and biomes. To find out where to find all the Ruin types, you can open the Advancement tab and read the first column. The one in front of us is a Desert Ruin, and is related to all the sun energy items. If we get closer, we can see energy globes spawning, and by killing them we can obtain energy. If we were to kill them by holding a book, the book will become a sun spell book, for example, because these one are sun energy globes. If we instead use a glass bottle, it's gonna become a jar of energy. By killing energy globes with a jar of energy, we're gonna fill the jar up. As you can see, the energy count increased. We can also just manually fill up the jar by right-clicking with energy, or shift right-click the jar to get energy out. If we instead kill globes with leather armor, we are gonna turn it into the spellcaster armor that we saw before. Now that we have all the items, we can move on how to actually make spells. So first of all, we have to get in our main end the spellbook, and then press F twice, really quick, to open the interface of the spellbook. In front of us, we have a 1 energy node and 5 buttons. We can click those buttons or the energy nodes above them to execute some instructions and navigate the interface. So first of all, we have to set a value to this Concatenate node, and we will see the importance of the Concatenate node with examples, but mainly it is what is going to allow us to create spells in the first place. So we can edit its value by right-clicking. Now we have some values in front of us, and to navigate through the values, we can right-click on the buttons on the right or the one on the left. For now, we will select the standard value. And to do so, we have to bring that value in the middle of the interface over the select button and right-click. Okay, now that we selected the standard value, we can see that we have other nodes to use in our interface. We can skip program because it's a complex feature and we'll be explaining it in a future tutorial. We can move on to shape. Okay, shape, it's what is gonna define the behavior of our spell. So let's make sure that the shape node is in the middle of the interface over the edit button and right-click to see its values. And as you can see, we have quite a few, and more will be added in the future. The first one is self, and it will allow us to apply an effect to a chosen target. Projectile will make the spell behave as a projectile, and it will apply the effect to the target hit. Sprout is just a slower projectile. And finally, Turret will not apply any effect, but will cast spells under certain conditions. So for now, let's select Projectile. That is the simplest one to explain. So we put it in the middle of the interface, as always, over the select node, and right-click to select. Now we can see beside shapes, we have 2 other nodes. One is called Movement and one is Effect. So the first one is the movement type that the projectile will have. We can select it in the middle of the interface, right-click to edit, and we see that we have 2 options, parabolic and straight. None will just make the projectile float in the air without moving, Parabolic will make the projectile be affected by gravity, and straight will make the projectile not be affected by gravity and just travel straight in the air. So we can select straight for now. Also, as you can see, over some values we have the energy symbol, and that's to show that that value has a cost in energy, and since the color is gray, it means that any energy will do. If now we were to cast a spell, it would not do anything. As you can see, it has no effect neither on blocks nor on entities. Now let's move into the effect node. The effects we have are fire, light, break, push, pull, and translocation. As for shapes, more will come in the future. All these effects will behave differently whether they have a target or not. If effects don't have a target, they will usually affect the block at the position of the shape activation. So fire will either lit the entity on fire or the block on fire. Light will make the entity glow or place a permanent light source. Break will break the block or damage the target. Push will push the target in a direction. Pull will pull the target toward a position. And translocation will teleport the target to a position. Now, for now, let's select fire and see what happens. As you can see, we can lit the blocks on fire or the entity on fire. Before taking a look into the other effects, I would like to stop a while to explain some mechanics of the spellbook and how the energy cost is withdrawn from the player. If we're going to survival and we try to cast again the spell that we casted before, we can see that we take some damage and our saturation gets depleted. And eventually we will die. This is because the spell is demanding us energy, and we don't have any in our inventory. So spells we first try to get energy from jars placed in the ground nearby. Then they will try to take energy from jars in our inventory. And finally from energy that we have in our inventory. If after trying all these methods the cost has not been paid yet, then the spell will try to pay the cost by taking saturation and delting disorder. So now that we have a jar of energy placed beside us, if we try to cast the spell, we can see that the energy is removed from that jar. If we were to break the jar, now it's gonna try to remove us from the jar in our inventory first. As you can see, it keeps removing energy from the first jar it finds in our inventory. Now that we have no jars in our inventory, we try to cast again and it removes the energy directly. Now I would like to talk about two mechanics of the spellbook that are pretty interesting to me. The first one is charging spells. So the longer you hold the right click button before casting, the stronger a spell becomes. By stronger I mean that effects that deal damage will deal more damage, and effects that have a duration will last longer, and in general every effect will become stronger. By charging a spell, the cost does not increase, but you have to be aware, because if you are in survival and you try to hold for longer, you will start to take damage, because the spellbook will try to withdraw energy directly from you. The perfect timing to maximize the power of the spell is to wait for the casting sound to end and then release right after. Another cool mechanic of the spellbook is that while casting, all the damage you receive will be blocked, but the spellbook will demand you some energy in return from the damage blocked. Finally, if you change your mind about casting a spell, you can simply change slot, as you would do with above. Now let's move to the light effect. And as said before, you will place a permanent light source. The longer you charge, the stronger the light source will be. And you can also shoot it at targets to make them glow. The longer we hold, the longer it will glow for. Now we can move to break. Break will damage entities. The longer you charge, the more amount of damage will deal. With just 3 charge hits, we can kill a zombie without any issue. If there is no target, break will try to break the block. And as we can see, it works just fine. But for other blocks, it will not work. To break other blocks, you have to charge a spell fully. While recording the tutorial, I realized that there are way too many nodes and values to remember all of them. So I decided to add a description over the selected node or the selected value. so that everything is already in game and people that are not familiar with the pack can still use it fine without watching the tutorial first. Another change I made is to retexture two of the pieces of the caster armor. As you can see, the chestplate now has the back showing too, and the skirt/boots is a bit slimmer to fit better with the pants texture. We can move on to push, and as I said before, it pushes the target in a chosen direction. And so here we have the direction node. The first value of the direction node is current, and for now we can keep it this way to demonstrate. And it will push the target in the current direction. Okay, what if we want to shoot the target in the air? We can just select the rotated value of the direction node. Now we can see the direction node as a subnode called angle, and the subnode angle has other 3 subnodes itself that are format, ion, and pitch. Since we're only interested in the vertical rotation, which is the pitch, we can change the angle value to be pitch only. Now for the format, we can decide whether the angle is going to be absolute or is going to be added to the current angle. In this case, we can choose absolute. And for example, we can select a pitch of -70, because as we can see from the F3 screen, by looking at this number here, that is the pitch rotation, it becomes negative while looking up and positive looking down. So now we have that our direction has the pitch angle set to -70 as an absolute value. If we shoot now, we can see that the target is pushed upward. We can decrease the angle to, let's say, 45, and now the target is going to be pushed backward and upward, because we did not override or change in any way the ion rotation, so the horizontal rotation will still be the same as before. We can also use this effect on ourselves, so let's introduce the self value of the shape node. We have a target, and we can select ourselves as a target. Now we can see the target node has 2 subnodes. One is feature, the other is distance, and they are both used to filter the selection. In this case, there is no need to use them because we just want to select ourselves in any circumstance ever. But we could, for example, say that it only works if we are sneaking, swimming, or we are on fire. That will become more useful for other stuff, like if we are selecting a generic player or a generic mob, we can select all players that are sneaking or all mobs that are on fire, for example. And then there is the distance node that will allow us to select if the target has to be in a range, or if it has to be at least at a certain distance, or it has to be between a max and a minimum distance. As I said before, we don't care about this one right now because we just want to select ourselves regardless. Now we can select the effect and select push, direction current, so the direction we are looking in while casting the spell. And now we can shoot ourselves forward. The longer you hold, the farther you will go. And for the way Minecraft works, you're gonna go farther if you jump before casting. Now we can move to pull. This effect is gonna pull the target toward a certain position. So we have the position node. If we were to leave current, we just get pulled toward the position of the cast of the spell. So for example, if we were to change the target from caster to an ally, sort, we can choose nearest, so we are sure we select this villager and not other random entities that are nearby. If we pull toward the current position, we will see the villager pull toward us. So now let's change back the target to the caster and change the position. We can, for example, choose an offset. Let's say a Z offset in a directional format. So we are offsetting the position forward of a certain value, and we change the Z value to, let's say, 10. Now we're going to be pulled 10 blocks ahead. We can also change it to be pulled toward the target. So we can, for example, be pulled toward that villager there. We can select, again, ally, sort nearest, selection single. And now when we cast, we get pulled toward it. Okay, enough for examples for the pull. We can move to Translocation. Translocation teleports the target to a chosen position, so it has the position node 2, and it works exactly as before. We can, for example, teleport ourselves to the target. So we can, for example, teleport ourselves to the villager. A thing to notice is when you teleport, you leave behind a trail. And if you go inside the trail, you get teleported to the teleport position. This is to balance the teleport spell in PvP, so that other players can follow you if you teleport away. And it's also really useful if you want to bring your friends with you, without having them have to teleport themselves to you again. Now to find out how useful the Concatenate node is, we're gonna build an Ender Pearl spell. So let's start by selecting on our first Concatenate, the shape projectile, movement parabolic, and now one might think that we can just use a translocation effect, position current, to teleport ourselves at the ending point of the projectile. But as you can see, nothing works, because a projectile shape apply the effects to the target hit by the projectile, and as of now we are not hitting anything. So this is not the right way to do it. So let's put the effect back to none and use the Concatenate. Now we're gonna set this Concatenate to standard, and now we have available another shape that will generate when the first one activates. The context of this shape will be the same position and the same direction that the previous shape had when it activated. So in this case, this shape will be generated where the projectile landed. So now we can just teleport ourselves, so self target caster, translocation effect to the current position, that is, as said before, where the projectile landed. So as you can see, now we can just teleport wherever we shoot the projectile. Okay, now we can just reset this spell by setting the first Concatenate's value to none, because when changing the value of one node, all the subnodes of that node will be reset. So now I'm gonna show you the last shape that we did not touch before, that is the turret shape. The subnode of this shape are movement, duration, condition, and fire mode. The movement for now only has the value none, so the turret cannot move from the position is created at. The duration will establish the duration of the turret, the parent node is the turret. The condition is going to determine when the turret is going to activate, and the fire mode will determine how the turret will actually fire. As you can notice, there is no effect node. This is because once the condition activates, the turret is going to run the next Concatenate instead of running an effect. So let's set the duration of the turret to an arbitrary number and take a look at the conditions. The conditions we have are cooldown and target. So the first one is really basic. It has a timer subnode that we can set to any value we want. So let's say 2. So now the turret will shoot after a cooldown timer of 2 seconds and it will fire once. So let's try to cast it. And as you can see, after 2 seconds it casted and disappeared. But it did not actually do anything because we did not set a second Concatenate. So to see actually what's happening and when the turret is shooting, we can set, for example, a projectile spell with a parabolic movement. We cannot set the effect for now because it's just for show. And if we cast again, we can see that after 2 seconds, the turret shoots and disappears. It disappears because we set the fire mode to once. If we were to set the fire mode to condition, after the cooldown timer ends, it will start again. So in total it will shoot 4 times. If we instead want a cooldown of any arbitrary number and then we want the turret to fire repeatedly, we can just select the repeat fire mode. And we have a subnode to regulate the speed. So we have really slow, slow, average, fast, and really fast. So if we select really fast, for example, after 2 seconds, the turret will start shooting and will shoot really fast. So we can move on to the target condition. And as we can see, there are 3 subnodes. One is inverted, that's going to allow us to invert the condition, the target node that we saw before, and the target count that's going to set the number of targets required in order to satisfy the condition. So we can, for example, set target caster in a distance of, let's say, 3 blocks, and we can leave the target count to any. So what we're asking is that the turret is gonna activate when there is the caster in the range of 3 blocks, and it's gonna start firing really fast. So it's gonna activate instantly because we are already in the range of 3 blocks. If we were instead to go to the inverted node and set the value to true, now the turret is gonna wait for us to get out of the range before start shooting. We can also put back the invert node to false and change the fire mode to condition. And now the turret is gonna activate every time the condition switches from false to true. So now that the turret shot, we can go far away and get near again, and it's gonna shoot again. This is really cool for something like, instead of a distance, maybe a feature, so like sneaking. So now the condition is the target sneaking. And we can just shoot every time we sneak. Now we are finally at the last point of the tutorial, which is the split concatenate, that is gonna allow us to execute the same concatenate multiple times offset with an angle from each other. So we have first the number of splits that we want. The default value is 2 and it ranges from 2 to 8. So let's say for example 3. Then we have a yawn and a pitch angle that are gonna be used to offset the various splits. So now if we set the shape to projectile, moving straight, we can see that it looks like we shot only one projectile, but we actually shot 3. To see better, we can modify the yawn angle and put it, for example, to 30. And now we're gonna shoot the projectiles with an angle from each other. We can also make the line diagonal by adding a pitch to. And yeah, that's mostly it. You can do pretty much whatever you want. So let's say we want like a 45 yawn angle from each other, and we put 8 splits. We can shoot projectiles all around of us to kill everybody around us, I guess. So yeah, this is about it for this tutorial, and I will make more videos talking about how to create other spells that are like more advanced and cooler, like the first one you saw at the beginning of the tutorial. Or for example, this other spell that will pick up arrows from the ground and shoot them. Or this one that shoots every hostile mob nearby. Anyway, for this video is all, and hopefully we will see each other in the next one.